Hola, 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 ¿qué pasó? Gracias por... Fuck. I speak Spanish, but the Romanian replaced it, fortunately. Tragic, tragic. All right, let's make sure all is in order. So I have to use my hotspot. Really fun. 1 second. Well, actually, while I'm getting the door, I should just share the screen. Okay. Whoa, how did that go so fast? Okay, so yeah, as a can twin end of your Cancer, so you're a full moon baby, or you're born like half a day before full moon. So yeah, basically, as a Cancer Capricorn, I know all about that. That's what my brother is. Um, that like being born on a full moon itself, as you know, like 6 hours before a full moon, energetically, and your sun is exactly on the midheaven, which is super powerful. So you have a 29-degree sun at 0 degree. Ooh, that's powerful. 0 degree rising in Scorpio. Um, so first instinct, super karmic chart right off the bat. And go watch all my readings. I don't say that. It's not like my go-to. I don't just say every chart's so fucking. I mean, everything is karmic in itself, but like I can feel the karma. Like I can just feel it already, right? Especially with all that water. Look at all that water. Um, you know, the vibe I get when people have that is that they're here to really tackle, especially with South Node in Taurus, North Node in Scorpio, with the ascendant, you are really here to tackle deep, deep emotional stuff in this lifetime, right? Um, and yeah. So basically being born on a full moon, some things are just simple, right? I'm gonna turn my camera off because I just did a full reading with the camera on, and I kind of want to just meditate and like walk around. I've been like having modes lately where like I don't do well, actually that's not true. I work pretty much every day. But when I have live reading days or like classes the last like 4 hours like yesterday, it's hard to do a reading after that. But um yeah, like I've just been like having days like once a week where I'm doing like 3 readings a night. So I reckon that is tonight. And I figured out how to keep them shorter, finally, for years and years. But yeah, so anyways, um so as you know, like being born on a or not being born, like just like the energy of a full moon is fucking intense, right? Like and it's usually the day before or the hours of the day, the half day, 2 days before a full moon. The energy's peaking, 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 peaking. So when you're born, right? Like as you can see, the moon was, and it makes I wonder because yeah, it would have been wow. I think like what degree would that full moon have been in? I think it would have been 29 because it's half a day, which would be so would it be like 29 like 45-ish? So it'd be like the very end, like that full moon that happened. So that must have been an intense full moon. And the fact that you've got Uranus involved in a square, right? Um, you've got Saturn involved in an opposition to the moon and a conjunction to the sun, which I swear, like every time, like I literally the reading I just did, it just had Saturn conjunct sun. This is like something that's always happened for me, and it's always gonna happen for me. Uh, like consequent back-to-back readings will always have something in common. Just there's no other way, you know. But anyways, so so yeah, like the moon has some tough aspects. But with the energy of a full moon, and there's also a square with Chiron and Jupiter. and opposition with Mercury. So a lot going on there with the sun and the moon. When the sun and the moon are opposite, like, and there's any aspects, like those aspects are hitting both, you know? Something conjunct the sun is going to be opposite the moon, and something square one will be square the other. So it's very interesting. So anyways, I think the vibe I get from full moon people is often that the parents, it's not necessarily that they didn't get along or that there's any the way I look at it now is like, I mean, most of the time people I've had who have full moon, and it's interesting, like I said, you have like my brother is the exact same as you, but he's just, yeah, you guys are both Cancer Cat moons, and both, yeah, born on full moons like that. So my parents are divorced, and like a lot of people I know, like most people, like when I do drop that, like full moon, um speaking to divorces, I usually am correct. That, and if it's not like a divorce, it's just like a very drastic difference in opinion, difference in worldview. So that can be very confusing for a kid, right? Growing up, when when one parent like feels something completely different than the other one. So the way I speak of it, or the way I think of it, it's like it's literally like learning to feed both mouths, right? So the Cancer mouth, obviously, it's very emotional, right? And this would be a lot easier for a female in today's world than a male, right? And the Capricorn one would be, it would be a lot more, and Capricorn moons is very karmic, right? Capricorn moons is very karmic. It's very much about trying to figure things out on that emotional level. And yeah, it's not easy. So, karmically, so like I said that like you have a lot of water because this is like the crucial lifetime for this is like the crucial lifetime for doing deep emotional shadow work for you, right? And one thing that I see and feel is how important it is for you to lean into the very grounded very grounded side of Capricorn. But as a Capricorn moon, and I had a very, an article that I really enjoyed, or that a lot of people enjoyed not too long ago, and I spoke about the difficulty for men in today's world with a Capricorn or Scorpio moon. Now, why would I choose those two moons? Because they're difficult fucking moons. And karmically, a Capricorn moon can speak to someone who has what I call crystallized, stuck emotional patterns. Uh, I'm not, and that's nothing to do with like having, like, I never want like someone like when I say something like that, it's not in any way me making a judgment. If anything, it's like we all have that shit. We all have different things in our karma that represent stuck energy. So when I look at that, I think of it more as like, okay, this person is ready to, they're ready to take that on right now. You see what I'm saying? Like they're ready in this lifetime, to take this on. So, yeah, it's not for everyone. But when I speak of like stuck, crystallized emotional patterns, a lot of times it runs in the family, and a lot of times with that axis of Capricorn and Cancer, that is, sometimes people with that highlighted, they could have had like a recent gender change, in this lifetime from the last one or the last few ones or whatever. So they're trying to like figure that out. Um, so yeah, like it's not necessarily so simple. Um, Now with that aside, hmm, with that aside, yeah, I just think that there's that theme of culminating and like this life being like a very important one because as the full moon is representative each lunar cycle of us culminating to some goal set in the new moon. It's the same thing for this lifetime. So you know, and when we look at the North Node journey to Capricorn, I always talk about that. That is like someone who has like a past life tendency to play things too close to home, at least in recent lifetimes. Like I always I know you're from Puerto Rico, Puerto Rico, Puerto Rico. My accent's not too good. It used to be really good. Puerto Rico, Puerto Rico. Um, but yeah, like my metaphor in my head is always Costa Rica for some reason, and I think of like a soul, whether it's a boy or a girl, who just grows up with like in this beautiful paradise place, and everything's all good with their family and their friends, and they never want to leave or make any really big changes, um, and because of that, like that's kind of like one of the things about the shadows about that sign is that it can be hard to take those risks. It can be difficult to take those risks. So moving from Taurus to Scorpio represents allowing yourself to take risks that are not easy, but that lead to transformation. And a big part of that goes back to what I was just getting into about the energy there, right? So about the energy of that Capricorn moon, about those stuck emotional patterns. So really being able to journal, right? And think, okay, what in the world could those represent? Right? What can that be in myself, in my soul, right? What can that represent? Um, and that's kind of like the starting point. A lot of times it's things that are stuck in the family. Like I like an example is like not being able to like express emotions of love, of caring in the family, things like that, you know? Um, and what can happen with the Capricorn moon is that because it's ruled by Saturn, the first 30 years can be very tough emotionally, where oftentimes is your Chiron in Aries, yeah, and fire. So my guess there was going to be Leo, but Leo Aries similar. So oftentimes, the person with that, they didn't feel like they were really able to truly grow, or like not grow, to truly be a kid, right? So and they also feel like their assertiveness function, their ability to be action oriented and to just go for things is blocked. So it can be very tough, but that's a big part of the mission is to reclaim and find your own power. But back to what I was saying about, you know, feeding both mouths of Cancer and Capricorn. Capricorn is very masculine, and it's very much about like the external world and the Dharma. And Cancer is the opposite, right? It is about the inner world, and it's like the mothering, nurturing instinct. So it's like, how can you nurture yourself, but still, as a Capricorn moons are their happiest when they're able to truly give back to society. You know, um, when they feel like they're doing something that's really, really giving back. That's when they really, really feel great. And when you have your sun conjunct Saturn, when your sun's exactly on the midheaven, ooh, and it's in the, you have your sun at what's known as the billionaire degree. That's fucking cool. So 29 degrees Cancer is the billionaire degree. There's a ton, especially when it comes to like real estate and businesses like that. Like, it can just be, it's very common for like a lot of like the richest people to be born at like the very end of Cancer. You have placements there, right? Important placements. A lot of times it's the sun at the like start of Leo and of Cancer. Cancer rules real estate. Obviously, that's like one of the best ways to make money, right? Or easiest ways, I guess, to make money. So yeah, I just want to throw that in there because that's interesting that you had that. But at the 29-degree Cancer sun, there's lots of culminations around the themes of Cancer, which are emotion, family, just like the energy of really, really giving back. So, and really all just mastering your own emotions at the end of the day, and being someone who doesn't self-victimize, and as a Cancer, it can be very easy to be like the crab that crawls back into the shell. Once they get hurt once, it can be very hard for them, especially the Capricorn moon, to come back and to re-allow themselves to trust, and be vulnerable again. So as a Capricorn moon, one thing about Capricorn moons, and this is, more in men, but, like in women too, right? The thing that makes it easier for women is that women traditionally are able to express their emotions when they're growing up as little girls. They're able to, and teenagers, they're able, their friend groups and the conversations they have are emotional. Like they can talk about their emotions. So a lot of men with it, because like a Capricorn moon, they want to keep up this kind of like even during really tough times, they don't want to, it's very hard for them to admit that they're weak. And people tend to think of Capricorn moons as that person, oh, they're strong, and a lot of times they had to go through a lot of really tough shit early on, so like one of the most difficult things for a Capricorn moon is being vulnerable. And when you have so much water in your chart, karmically, and your north node's in Scorpio, karmically you're moving towards that very thing, right? You're moving towards um being okay with being vulnerable. So yeah, breath, the breath, the breath, the breath. So one other thing I would say, meh, 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 meh. Yeah. So one other thing I would say is So like like this chart, there's a lot to figure out in the family. And because of that Saturn on your sun, right? Um, that can speak to, father and mother, because they're both in, it's opposite the moon. That's one of the hardest aspects is moon opposite Saturn, because it can make one prone to melancholy, depression, and it can make it really, really hard for Capricorn moon already. No, even as a Leo or a Sag moon opposite Saturn can make vulnerability and opening up so difficult. So it's like almost like the person, like one of their life purposes, right, is to learn to just like be able to just speak their emotions. And it can feel so uncomfortable at first, but once they start doing it, it just gets easier. A little bit of magic, right? Um, that comes when when you're able to like just like speak and people connect with that, and they feel that braveness, they feel it. So that's very important. Now, with that energy, like, with your sun, your moon, it's likely the parents were probably pretty hard on you, I would imagine. That's usually what I see with these kinds of placements, is that like there could have been some type of perfectionism built into the family structure. Um, so yeah, it's not like easy peasy. Um, a lot of times they have to kind of get past some family conditioning early on. Um, and yeah, and just learn to kind of blaze their own trail. Because when you have sun opposite moon, a lot of times it's the case that you are not meant to be like mom or dad. You're really meant to be your own person, right? You're meant to be your own guru per se. Um, and what I've noticed about people with charts like yours, with the parts I'm talking about so far, is a lot of times it really takes some time to grow in to these charts. Like like I said earlier, like the Saturn turn um is usually massive. Um, so yeah, just like I'll say it a million times, like whatever could have brought you shame before that, let it go. Whatever is in your past, because the cancers can be past oriented, right? Uh, and I wouldn't say Capricorns are not. I mean, they're opposite signs, so it's the same energy but opposite. But yeah, it's just important to not obsess with the past, and not get stuck there. I read a poem by Hafiz earlier that was talking about that. Um, and just like how when people are like basically like, yeah, like just the suffering that comes from like from the past, from being like overly obsessed with and concerned with the past. Like, yeah, it happened. Yeah, we need to heal from it, but that's like one thing sometimes Cancer energy can do a little bit too much of, is be too past oriented. Um, but yeah, so the Saturn energy, definitely extra responsibilities growing up, probably some setbacks, feeling like you're going forward and then getting pushed 4 steps back, 3 steps forward, 4 steps back, 4 steps forward, 2 steps back, 2 steps forward, 5 steps back. And then once you get to, once you got, past that Saturn return, Saturn, a Saturnian chart like yours, everything gets easier with age. Everything gets better with age. So that's very important. Now, aside from that, and we see like, the T square here, Moon, Uranus, Sun slash Saturn, and it pushes out in Aries, right? At 28 Aries, right around your Ceres and your South node, which is very interesting. Very, very. No, not your South node. What am I talking about? I meant to say your Chiron. So, and that could actually form a grand cross actually too. But yeah, basically like so with the Uranus energy, right? Um, and wait, no, it does form a grand cross with Sun, Moon, Uranus, Jupiter. So yeah. So basically, a grand cross is four planets squaring each other. Um, so understanding the overall energy, basically you have to understand each part of it. So with the moon square Uranus, sun square Uranus people, a lot of times it's later, they have a very, very particular mission in this life in their lifetime. They're here for a very specific reason, right? So when you have like a very specific purpose, it makes sense that you wouldn't necessarily find it just right away, you know? So so yeah, it's not something that's just like easily found. And sometimes there's a lot of trial and error that has to go into that process. So um very rebellious. People with that, a lot of times they really like felt the need, like a lot of times those people who had that moon square are divorced, or the parents are divorced, excuse me. And sometimes it can lead to them having like very back and forth emotions, right? Like swinging emotions. So it's really important to ground, right? Um, and they can have sometimes like almost like a compulsive like like obsession with change, right? And for like the new and shiny, which can create relationship problems, right? When um someone is like really wanting the new all the time, right? So one of the lessons with that is just to be happy with and grateful for what they have, and to understand that they might have like a bias towards towards the new, towards the shiny, towards like grass is green on their side. Like if they're single, they think of like, oh, I want to be in a relationship so bad, and they're in a relationship, they might think, oh, I want to be single so bad. Um, so also there's this inner rebelliousness because as you know, Uranus is the Aquarius planet and it's related to like liberation. So if you had with Saturn already showing as like parents who are most likely quite, I don't want to say quite conservative, quite traditional. A lot of times the Saturn parents, they just push they're strict, and they restrict the child's ability to like really let themselves go, as seen by your Chiron and Aries, which is your pain around being able to truly let yourself go, right? And of course, astrology is all free will meets the chart. So I don't give any. I'm giving you the web of possibilities, because I never want to like make someone think that like this is how you are. No, it's like your chart meets the work that you've done, but and then Chiron's in the mix too as a square also. So we have to continue that. Because Chiron is it's there with Jupiter. So it's a really, really big grand cross in cardinal energy. And what's the answer to cardinal energy? Cardinal energy is about self-starting. But when there's that much of it, there could be the potential for not, what is it I'm supposed to do? What is the right move, and trying tons of things. Um, but with the square with Uranus, it can make someone just like so obsessed with like doing the unconventional thing, right? Like let's say there's like they have a choice, they might like, even if like one of the options is like logically so much better, right? Like think of like it's like a life decision, and their parents who they want to like be rebellious towards, like you should definitely do this, you should definitely do that. And then because they have this Uranus energy, which is also related to like past life trauma, right? Around around potentially being ostracized or being different. It's the part of you that really is able to think outside the box and see things in a different light from a different perspective than others around you, right? It's kind of like a genius energy. um Now it's great, but it's really important to really be able to stand firm on your 2 feet and not take shit from other people, like not allow other people's like versions of truth to get in the way of yours. Um and that goes with your Black Moon, Lilith, and Pisces, right? Which, Black Moon, Lilith, and Pisces people have to watch out for their like lowest energy, um, related to like escapism and not facing reality. They really have to learn the difference between imagination and intuition, idealism and reality, and not allow themselves like kind of on that low Cancer energy to like fear being vulnerable once they've been hurt. So going back to what I was saying, you know, the Uranus with the sun, yeah. So just overall, it's like someone who's rebellious, someone who wants to live their own life, someone who wants to really individualize. But sometimes they might piss off more traditional people in the meantime, and sometimes they might sometimes they might also do things just for the sake of doing the thing that they weren't supposed to do, even if that different thing is like objectively not the right one. So yeah. um yeah, continuing this energy, there's definitely a big push, like with the Chiron squares, um and the Jupiter square. So like the Chiron square, that's just speaking to like pain, just like, but like it's just like spiritual pain that pushed you away from feeling like you could be empowered, from like the early, whether it was like a really nasty divorce or whether it was just the overall karma and relationship with the parents and the things that, because you as a healer, right? This is the energy that makes you able to be so empathetic, that makes you able to be so gifted as a healer, regardless of whether you're a healer or not. You see what I'm saying? The Chiron square sun and moon is like literally like the initiation, the cosmic initiation when it comes to that person in respect to being a healer. So it's quite perfect. But also it's difficult. It's very difficult, because Chiron, it's their suffering, right? So I imagine like another thing with the Uranus squares, the moon one especially, a lot of people with that, they have divorced parents and they had to move around a lot, like maybe like their one parent lived in one place, one lived in the other. And then in life they sometimes like they just really want to move, like they're very comfortable with change and very comfortable with moving, and sometimes it's like, yeah, like I said, it can be like a compulsive like need for stimulation, excitement. So yeah, that can be very difficult for relationships, as I said earlier. Um because yeah, like you get bored of people easily. But with this energy here, with the Chiron squaring them both, like I said, yeah, there's deep pain from mother and father, most likely. Running in the bloodline, things that like it's like you're, like generational stuff that you're the chosen one to undo it. That's the vibe I get for sure. And yeah, like Chiron in the sixth house also with your part of fortune is literally saying that like, you as a healer for your job, some type of healer is you at your flow state. That's you at your best, is when you're working as an actual healer. which is quite neat. Neat, neat, neat. Um, hmm, what else can I say about that? Yeah, so a really a nice thing about Chiron is that you really get to see your kind of more latent talents. Um, and it opens up, yeah, like because of like the own pain that you have to overcome, you are really, really good at being able to like know like what to say, right time, right words, and really be like a very authentic healer who like is able to heal themselves when they're, when they're healing other people. So it's like this real dual kind of impact. And when I tell people about them being a healer, I believe everyone is a healer, you know? Not everyone, but like, like it's not just for people who have chosen psychology or therapy or coaching or being a doctor or being an astrologer or whatever. It's like, no, you literally like we all have the Chiron archetype within us. It's just about activating it, and like I said, you know, with the energy in your chart, you have like a massive your career is so important, and it's so interesting because you have your sun, so it's even more about like the bloodline stuff and the karma. Having your moon close to the IC, right? It would give you very strong emotional connection to your upbringing, um, in the early on days. So there's really this need to kind of go deep if there are any buried wounds, uh not uncovering those and not like giving those the energy and moving past them can really prevent you from accessing your your life purpose, which when you have the midheaven, which represents your dharma, your sun in the exact same degree at 29 degrees as your midheaven, like you're destined for something like very important, very great. And with the fact that sun is square Uranus, there's some level of like individuality and getting to know yourself, and like it's probably something that's more unusual, like it could be like something like astrology, who knows? Um, that is the purpose, right? So it's special, quite special. Um, I'll go camera on for a minute. So okay, there I am. Hello. Hola, hola, hola. Why is my TV on? Okay. So I like close my eyes and meditate when I do this sometimes, so I don't get weirded out. But yeah. So that's kind of the energy there. Another big thing with the Uranus and the Chiron is this feeling of being misunderstood, especially like in your own like early upbringing, right? Feeling misunderstood, yeah, it's just like you have so many lessons around like learning to rise above the pain, that it's like very, very important, and yeah, so like I was saying earlier, like it's that childhood wound that keeps you away from like really shining. So the more that you can like go into that and just truly face it and not push it away, that's like the better things are, and you just gain so much inner strength through all these aspects, so much empathy, and then by the time you hit your first Saturn return, it's like you're unstoppable. Nothing can really pull you down. But another thing about Black Moon Lilith in Pisces is um just the need to um just the need to, yeah, to be very real about yourself and your emotions. um because it kind of speaks to this overarching theme. Fuck, I just accidentally screwed something up. All right. I wanted to like film myself doing a reading for a story, but or like speaking a little bit. So, yeah, basically, let me just share a screen with my face. What happened? Okay, that's good. So, yeah, I mean, it's definitely like, yeah, it's definitely difficult. Now with Jupiter in the picture, the thing with Jupiter, it's squaring like your Mercury also, right? Because it's here and the Mercury is there, so it squares and it's this one it's the piece. No, it's still a grand cross, but the actually no, it's not because Mercury is not squaring Uranus. Um, so with Mercury and Sun square Jupiter, um, basically this is like Superman slash Superwoman syndrome, right? And when you have all three of them squared, you really have to remember to look before you leap. Not take risks. Not like okay, take risks, but like really lean into that's a good thing that you have the Cancer Capricorn energy because that's more conservative, right? Um, but like it can make someone like so with the Mercury, I have Mercury in the Sun, so like I know. With the Mercury, it's like promising too much. Example from my life, not to talk about me, but when I started my subscription service, I was like, I'm gonna make this the best uh service subscription service on IG for astrologers. I meant that and I was capable of that, but I didn't factor in the fact that there's no fucking way I could be consistent forever with like this, current astrology like videos I was making, like there's no way. So that's an example, like promising more than I can chew off. So you promising more than you can chew off with the Sun, it's like I give it the metaphor of the person that enters a casino thinking that they're automatically gonna win, you know? So it can be leveraged into this great leadership, right? Where this person is so like anything is possible, which is so amazing to have that. But it can also be, difficult in it from another extent. Um, so the fact that that the Mercury, so then there's Mercury opposite Moon. That's another one. There's so many aspects. Um, And, at that point, you're dealing with an energy where your mind, right? Mercury, your brain, your rationale is at odds with your heart. So what you want, like it makes decision making complicated, because your heart wants one thing and your mind, your brain wants something different. That's sort of the difficulty with that aspect, right? So when we throw everything together, the fact that the T square um, shoots out in Libra, it between Mercury, Jupiter, and Moon, which is, the theme there is that potential for being overly jubilant and expand and overly I can do anything, Superman, Superwoman syndrome. Libra is about diplomacy and it's about weighing out the pros and the cons, right? It's about balance. So the more you're able to lean into that with your decision making process, the better it will be for you. You see what I'm saying? Now, if we then look at um, if we then look at your Mars, so or do I want to go there? Oh, I was speaking about Mercury, so no, actually, let's okay, really quickly with your ascendant, right? So as a Scorpio, so as you know, Scorpio ascendant, that does have a really good relationship with Capricorn and Cancer, right? Because it's a water sign like Cancer. So one really good thing, one really, really good thing is when your ascendant is trining or in the same element as your sun, and if it's sextile your moon, that's great too. Because ultimately, if it's like an egg, your ascendant is the shell, the white is the sun, and the yolk is the moon. It can be difficult if there's not a congruence between your moon and the ascendant. And in your case, there is, right? Because with the Scorpio rising and the moon in Capricorn, those are two signs that are similar. So it's kind of like an energy of like what you see, your ascendant, is what you get, your moon. So there's no surprises. Like if someone has like the opposite kind of thing, it's like people get to know them. They seem very social, but then inside they're like a Cancer moon or a Pisces. Outside they're like a Leo, and it can be difficult, right? So it's a very strong asset for you. And then the sun and Cancer complements that even further. So yeah, you know, that is important stuff. Um, very important stuff. Very important. Very important. Um, Scorpio and Capricorn get along really well, but that sometimes they can be too serious. So this is one thing about your chart is that as your Chiron, which is such a big part of your chart because it's conjunct your part of fortune, I think you're meant to be a healer, to be honest. And even the fact that you have a Mars in the seventh house, so well, I'll get into that in a sec. But just for the sake of being a healer, that is an energy that's very good. Um, because it would make you like want to get clients and go towards clients if you were like doing something like I do or like counselor or something like that, right? But with Chiron the sixth, you like when you're healing yourself, when you're healing other people, that's when you're really at your best. So it's like a huge part of this life purpose for you is literally healing. Um, Now another interesting part. So, um, I mentioned, like the Scorpio rising and the North Node in Scorpio. So like kind of back to what I was saying before, like as the South Node's in Taurus, that Taurus is peace, right? So I was telling you earlier how there's that tendency to be very much used to peace and not necessarily taking the risks that are needed for the deep, deep change, right? That so there's lots of pushes in your chart towards that deep change. So with the Scorpio North Node, you are meant to go through really intense experiences in this lifetime that are in the first house that are reconfiguring and redefining the self. It's like you're getting to know yourself on a deeper level through intense experiences that push you to levels that you had not yet gone to because you're happy with what was and what was comfortable, right? So, that's that's important. It's important to understand that, right? Because like I was just talking about it yesterday with my one of my students, about like how um people who had that signature, they are, they're really trying to experience something a little bit different, and their soul with all this water is ready. It's ready for the intensity. So yeah. Um, and then On top of that, holy fuck. Well, you have Uranus rising. I wasn't gonna say. I was gonna talk about Pluto 12th house, and then you have the Virgo Venus. But yeah, I have so many things to talk about. But there's also the fact that you have North Node in Scorpio, right? So you're meant to evolve and transform into your life can be is meant to like be broken up into these very, very distinct eras, right? Where you look back on yourself at different times. You're like, I don't even know who the fuck that was. Was that an actress playing me? But one of the interesting things is that you have Neptune in the second. That's what I want to talk about. Now, is Neptune making any aspects? It's squaring your Venus. Damn. Okay. Well, that's really important with love stuff. So maybe I'll save this for, or should I go into that now? Let's just go into it now. Why not? Did I go over every aspect with sun and the moon? I did. I did. I did. Um, or did I say everything about sun opposite Saturn? Like literally, sun opposite Saturn is so hard. Like sun opposite Saturn, like it can really make it so like it because the things that we want in life most are what? It's like love, happiness, and it can make people lonely, it can really make people lonely. And despite I wasn't picking my nose, I'm just scratching the inside, I promise. Allergies. But it can just make someone sad, and especially if the relationship with the father was too strict, and it usually speaks to like a very emotional cold parents, right? And not getting what your very sensitive self needed as a kid. And sometimes that happens with the Capricorn moon kids because they don't put out that vibe that they need that help, right? Scorpio rising has this real intensity to them too. They have this real, especially 0 degrees. That's very interesting because that's like the fool in tarot, like that's the person who's like coming to this life. It's a new energy, lots of trial and error, right? But yeah, so like how your relationships were growing up with your parents, so important to like how this would have turned out. Um, and yeah, it definitely can affect the relationships later in life, and just feeling lovable. And like I said before, you have to be able to share your emotions. But like another thing about this is like taking on so this is something I didn't mention. This is what I want to talk about. Um, you know, there's um, there's also this component of taking on energy that's not yours from your parents, right? Taking on energy, taking on a shame, taking on guilt, all these types of things, right? And a lot of the times it's when you start to separate yourself, and it's very unconscious stuff. It runs very, very deep in the psyche. So when you're able to start to separate yourself and realize, oh, that's my mom's guilt, or oh, that's something that's run in my family for so long, that is when real change comes. But it's very common when I see placements like this that person's hanging on for something else, or hanging on to something that's not theirs. Now, swimming back, then you have the Neptune in the second, which speaks to an identity crisis potential, right? Where you might not see yourself clearly. You might have a difficult idea, um, you know, a very different idea of who you really are. And while it might be easy for some people to see it, for you it might not be for you it might not be that easy, right? So yeah, but like speaking from that, the fact that, well, actually I should probably slide in there that as a rising Scorpio, you have Uranus rising too, so it makes you almost like a Scorpio slash Uranus rising, slash Aquarius, excuse me, because Uranus is Aquarius. So that speaks further to your personality and the need in this lifetime to individuate, to be your own person, separate from conditioning, separate from where you're from, separate from your family, separate from your upbringing. You want to be different. Um, and it's in the 12th house. It's extremely psychic. And then your Pluto's in the 12th house, which rules your chart. Now, this is why you are a very special human, or one thing in your chart, because your North Node is ruled by Pluto in the 12th. Pluto in the 12th is the ultimate energy of someone who karmically in this lifetime is meant to jump off the. So Saturn is rock and it represents the material reality, right? And Neptune is the ocean and it represents the endless stream, right? The endless oneness. So people who have 12th house Plutos, it is the ultimate enlightenment in this lifetime. They're meant to truly jump off that rock of Saturn into that ocean, that oneness of Neptune, right? And that is a big evolutionary impetus. And there can be a lot of pushback and a lot of fear, just as jumping off a cliff into water. You have that fear because, when you're flying, it's uncertain. But once you do it once, it gets so much easier. So it's just about taking leaps. Uranus in 12th is super psychic. It can give you just so many intuitive downloads when you're able to meditate and be grounded. You get these intuitive flashes. It's really, really brilliant, and you can have a very unusual fashion of going deep into the human psyche and all that stuff. So remember, like the biggest goal here is how do I shake off how like if there's these crystallized emotional patterns within me, right? They're kind of stuck, you know. How do I like the moon wants to be water? How do I get that water flowing, right? So that's the question. Now, with your Venus in Virgo, this is extremely important. I'm going to go back to the off camera. So Venus in Virgo, Venus is people always think Venus is just, our love language, which, it is, but it relates a lot to um it relates a lot to what we really value in ourselves and how we love ourselves, and that is a metaphor for the misconception of love in today's world, as people try to find God within others, instead of within themselves. So yeah, yeah. Um, and Venus in Virgo is tough. It's tough because, especially in the square, it's square Neptune. So, Venus square Neptune, it definitely, it definitely makes you have to be extra careful in love relationships. Um, because it can give the rose-colored glasses where, and you might be married, I don't know. I give it to you, like this, for me, I'm giving it to you, the same, I'm giving, it's the same thing as if you're 20, 21, 25, 30, 35, 40. No, Esmond. Actually, come here, Esmond. She wants to help. Okay, I'll turn the camera back on because this is a special moment of the reading. Okay. Not yet, Esmond. Okay. Look at the part of the chart that's most important. Pluto, oh no, oh, you looked at two. Thanks, baby. My cat is so talented. I just did this last reading and she looked at the Pluto last reading, but she looked at Pluto and then she looked right at Venus, which was interesting. Why? Oh, interesting, Esme. So the Pluto is representing her need for enlightenment. And you're saying that there's a parallel between that need to dive in and to conquer any like hidden fears she might have, and to really become like a master when it comes to the esoteric and the occult. And you're saying how that would increase her self-awareness, which would increase her view of herself because of Neptune. Is that what you're saying, Esme? Is that what you're saying? Is that what you're saying? Hmm? Is that what you're saying? That like her Neptune, um, square Venus, it can really like make it so someone with respect to like, what they value in others, what they value in themselves, um, you know, it just makes it difficult, like yeah, the process of like over idealization is very, very common, right? Back to that. So, you know, and it's just like self-love becomes very difficult. And when you have all these difficult aspects to your sun, your moon, it's not, like I've said earlier, it's like you cannot fucking shame yourself on anything that happened the first 30 years and feel bad about it. Like, yeah, you have to like conquer it, but you know, and I told you before about like taking on the emotions that aren't yours and blah blah blah. But this is about self-love. So like learning to love yourself and like for every part of yourself, even with your Uranus rising, which can be, a little bit shocking to some people because it's so like independent and individualistic and rebellious. And if you're coming from like a traditional household, traditional values, it can be very, very shocking. But yeah, with the Venus square, some people will feel like unlovable, victimized, ostracized. And ostracized could definitely be one with that Uranus and square moon and sun. It's very common. Very, very common. So, let's think here. Yeah. So, basically, yeah, there's like a whole distortion of the self-image, and once you realize that that's happening, one of the best ways to deal with that is to lean into, like, I always tell people this, and I've had such good results that I'm just like, wow. Because Neptune rules video cameras, it rules mirrors. So if you just do like a daily or once in a while, just like film yourself on your phone. You don't have to show anyone. Just talk about your emotions. Talk about like, like a vlog. Like you're a famous YouTuber or something. You're just like saying, hey, what's up? This is what's going on like today. It can have a very healing effect and help you kind of like understand yourself better on those levels. So yeah. And just anything that makes you feel beautiful, like dancing, like creative outlets like that. That's important too. And yeah, just like the whole romantic thing is like being blind to the faults of others. But which is very interesting because as a Venus Virgo, that's the ultimate sign of the person who like um you know expects this like unrealistic perfection in partners. And then when they find out that that's impossible, like basically like their own, if they have to get past their own perfectionism, their whole 100 thinking. Until they do that, they can project that onto partners, right? um and once they figure out like, oh, like they see like one, like sometimes like Virgo Venus is when they see one bad thing, they're like, oh, that's like no way, I'm not giving that person any more of a chance. And they just have this idea of this like perfect partner that doesn't exist, you know like no one is fucking perfect. So, and then with a square with Neptune, they can have these, yeah, rose colored glasses, over idealized energy towards certain people that don't necessarily deserve it. um and they can be, prone. I said prone, I didn't say it's happening, to the more energy vampire type. Um, like being blind to the faults of these people. And yeah, they can just be like, you know, susceptible to like big disappointments. Um, and yeah, like to narcissistic people also. So, and self-abuse, like if your self-image isn't looked at, self-abuse can come, and self-hatred is like a very, very low potential of that, right? Now, of course, with all these, there's, you know, the higher energy, which Venus in any aspect to Neptune is like the best creativity possible. So if you can like have a creative outlet for all this, it's like the best thing. I love the fact that all this energy in Aries is in the sixth house, because to me that makes me think that you could be someone who is just such a leader in your day-to-day life, you know? And Jupiter Aries is a very strong placement for it. Very, very strong leadership, a very strong woman you are. Um, so one really good indication for intelligence is that you have Venus or Saturn conjunct Mercury. Mercury rules the brain, Saturn rules memory. So that's really, really good. Um, it just makes someone very good at um, having a responsible mind, but you know they also have to watch out for that perfectionism, you know, and like little voices in your head, whether it's from mom or dad, that just kind of linger in there. Um, you know, but it does make someone very self-disciplined and cautious and serious in their thinking, and you know, very precise, you know, someone that like if I was starting a business, I would, you know, because they have like that structured, well structured and very disciplined mind. So there's someone I would trust if I had like a company, you know. And yeah, they like to keep their mind productive. And you know, it's in Cancer. So you know, working through family karma in this lifetime, working through emotional karma, as I said before. um and yeah, being able to really speak in an emotional way. And it's conjunct Juno, which adds even more of like a real beauty. Now, speaking with the love stuff, I haven't really talked about. So I can't believe you have, like, I honestly think like midheaven and sun at 29-degree Cancer, like that is so amazing for money. Some astrologers who I don't know how much I trust them. Like, I mean, I don't know. I know for a fact that fixed stars are really the game changers for like fame, but like for wealth, like yeah, definitely the 29-degree Cancer is like probably the degree of the whole zodiac. So the fact that your midheaven and sun is there, it's like, you know, your life purpose is so a lot of times sun and midheaven people, but I say a lot of times I've talked to some people who have had like famous or like very popular fathers with this, with like Jupiter or Sun or Saturn there. Um, a lot of time, but then I've talked to some who don't. But you know, basically, like the father most likely would play, like, you know, maybe it was someone like very important, very successful, or at least someone that plays like a huge role into your professional kind of dharma, like professional career development, or just like your dharma. You know, you're like kind of like who you're trying to become. So, so yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, what else? Oh yeah, one thing about Mercury Saturn too is that there can be negative thought patterns that can come up, and like just like thinking in a negative way. Um so and it can, yeah, create like low moods. So it's just really important to like work out and to have things like that you're doing that are keeping you up, and having like a physical and a creative outlet, and like really, really caring about your work, because as a Capricorn moon, um you know, and just like really having a lot of mindfulness practice when it comes to your thoughts. That's huge. But yeah, like you'll be someone who's able to really like as a healer to really communicate in a very, very like soothing way, even though like it can take on like a soothing Juno way in Cancer, but with the Saturn it can also be a little bit cold. So like I said, with the Capricorn moon, like the key to your chart is breaking through that barrier. It's breaking through the Cap moon um barrier. Now, um yeah, so that's the thing, Virgo. Yeah, they sometimes in love, like but like another thing about Virgo Venus is that they want to be noticed for the small things they do. Their love language a lot of times is through actions, little actions they do for the lover, and they want to build solid foundations, like to their relationships. They don't want to muck around. And with the Juno in Cancer, your ideal mate is someone in ninth house, someone who you can learn a lot from philosophically and someone who provides you with this real deep emotional and just security in general, where you can feel like that person represents home away from home. So it's quite beautiful. And I cannot stress enough how important Sun conjunct midheaven is exact degree on the billionaire degree. And you might be like, oh, I'm not a billionaire. But like, look, like, your career can change anytime. Um, and I think that you're going to be top 5 richest people in the next 20 years. That's my prediction. I hope that for you. But like, it could also just be someone who like, with the Capricorn moon who wants who, they value more being able to break through these emotional patterns um in their career and have something that really nurtures them emotionally. And that can be way more important than money. So Vertex, in Aquarius, your higher awareness is through your um, like what you give back to other people, to humanity. And so Vertex doesn't actually it's it's supposed to be in the fifth, sixth, seventh, or eighth. In whole signs, I guess it falls in the fourth. Um, which is odd. Let me try something. Huh. Yeah, fourth house Vertex. That was only the sixth, seven, eight. Well, uh, so yeah, your Doria higher awareness is like really through cultivating that that human like really being a service in your life, right? Really, really finding that real unique you so like yeah, actually makes perfect sense like this. It's like a mix of that and having that deep spiritual relationship with yourself where you're having you're speaking to yourself, you're having these conversations with yourself or whatever that looks like for you and yeah. So aside from that, oh yeah, Neptune second, like with finances, you have to really you have to really understand that there can be almost like a mimicking like a mimicking energy between like finances, like you can't be like overly obsessed with them in the sense of like you when that happens, like they can be very kind of foggy and kind of like confusing. Some people with that will become like hardcore minimalists and stuff. And um it's just like kind of an energy where it's like pushing one away from like being materialistic, overly materialistic. And when they're able to align themselves with more spiritual values, then it fixes a lot of the stuff that might, revolve around money. Um, so yeah, like this is like the chart of someone who's meant to surrender, who's meant to totally surrender to the universe and just like accept whatever comes at them. Did I leave anything out? I know I did. Okay, okay. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Sixth house Jupiter is okay. I guess I just lost you for a second. Um, yeah, so was the thing. Jupiter sixth house, yeah, it's really, really good for health, really good for just daily routine in general and physical, mental, emotional, everything in your daily life is getting really, really, really good. And having Vesta there too with Pallas, that is someone who can, really, really serve others, is really committed to serving others and do their work basically. And then Vesta in Aries is very entrepreneurial, very self-reliant, motivated in your work, work, enjoying working by yourself, all that stuff. Yeah. And then Palace and Aries, that just gives like a very quick mind. I have Palace and Aries too. Um, so yeah, being able to come up with like lots of exciting new ideas. And someone who's able to risk it. Remember, I told you like don't risk it too much, but someone who can risk putting their new ideas into action. And Palace Sixth House makes one organized with their day-to-day life and being able to like make plans to, you know, get to where they want to get. And also it makes one a very gifted healer who might have that really that like I said with the Chiron there really show up in their day-to-day life. But also Chiron sixth house, there can be feelings of physical inadequacy. Um so you're like and sometimes people with that they have like some kind of like health thing growing up. So they're searching for this like self-healing and then they're able to like teach that to other people. Um And yeah, just like power fortune areas, I already talked about the sixth house, but basically when you're able to like use your willpower to achieve your goals, like that is like where you are, really in your flow state. And yeah. Stop Esme, not right now. You already helped me. So yeah, I think like the fact that Esme looked at the Venus is speaking to like the importance of that self-love, for sure. All right. Besides that, so oh yeah, ninth house Saturn, just like by itself, lots of astrologers have that. Lots of people who are really into this type of work about about truth. Um, and sometimes it's not until like their Saturn return that they really kind of like start to really get into that. But then they can have like a very like serious and organized approach to studying higher philosophy and higher truth. And with your Mercury there too, you'll be very curious and interested in this. And their Juno there, you'll want a partner who can also, besides just being that home for you, who you can have like an intellectual relationship with, maybe someone from a different culture than you. Not necessarily that second part, but definitely someone who you can bounce ideas off of. Oh, and Mars. I didn't even talk about Mars. So Mars is unaspected. Interesting. Seventh house. That definitely gives someone like a push towards intimate relationships. Um, and someone who likes to remain, independent within them. But then in Taurus, Mars and Taurus people it's very good for success. Um, they're able to like once they really figure out what it is that they want, they're able to really go, 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 go. And take like a very reliable course. Sometimes they can be so one thing to watch out for with your overall energy is over seriousness. So like the need for it's really important to have a sense of humor in life, and stubbornness potentially, right? Because you have some of the stubborn energy in your chart. I'm not calling you that. I'm just saying that's potential. Sirius in Taurus, and yeah, also the fact that Mars is unaspected, that just means that it speaks even further to this potential energy of just going, So like you really have to check yourself and not and like the old mantra of my grandpa, sleep on it. Any big decision, sleep on it. But it definitely gives like a lot of firepower. Even though you lack I mean, yeah, you have Jupiter there. Um, but no Leo and no Sag personal planets. Just a Jupiter, which is like a middle planet. Um, but yeah, so that kind of depth. I need to take a look at the. Oh yeah, Sirius. Yeah, Sirius and Taurus. Basically, like yeah, basically it makes one very like in the seventh house, very loving, caring towards their partner. They nurture their, they really like feel like nurture when they're in relationships that are very fair, where there's like a good, very dependent partner, someone who's very consistent and who gives them that sense of Taurian stability and security. Also touch, and all the senses, like closeness, like that makes them feel very nurtured, and they like to also, give that back in return. Kind of like your Venus in Virgo, which likes to kind of have like that practical basis and that real structure and uh you know like they prefer like a more punctual and precise and neat type of partner. Um, yeah, and also like one thing I forgot is like enjoying to have like people with Venus in Virgo, like they enjoy perfection, but sometimes too much. But like they also like to read, they like to learn, and they're very observant. Um, that's why they're able to see the faults in other people sometimes. All right, all right, let's pull these bad boys up. Okay, I have to start this. What is this? Hold up. Let me search this. So yeah, you have Cassandra, which I'm just learning about rising, which gives like very strong intuition, very strong divination skills. So you can bring like lots of telepathic and transcendental messages during childhood, which maybe could have frightened you. Which yeah. So it's all about like letting those in. Um, it's also good for appearance. Yeah, so that's interesting. Um, ooh, I don't even know what the fuck that would be. So you have Nemesis Rising, and that's about like enemies. So I'm trying to find something that can tell me what the fuck that means, Rising. Asteroid Nemesis and where people are praying for your downfall. So yeah, it can just create them haters. Somebody gave me yeah, it can make you feel like it can make like enemies like a big part of your life potentially. Maybe people who are like jealous of that Scorpio energy or who like feel like intimidated by it. Is there anything? Come on. Yeah. Well, now here's something. Okay, so it represents the vagaries of fate, self-undoing, reversal of fortune in any person or thing which holds us back, prevents our will, denies goals, or punishes our actions. Additionally, there can be issues with assigning blame, scapegoating, or finding fault. This shit. Yeah, this is usually. I mean, Nemesis, I usually look at more in terms of like compatibility stuff. But yeah, I guess that the theme of enemies, really, right? Okay, in your natal chart, Nemesis indicates energy influences that tear you down and apart. When young, one follows Nemesis, the negative self-fulfilling prophecy. Okay. Obviously, the soul matures and evolves. About with Nemesis should be more clear to the individual and more conscious models of dealing with the situations as they arrive transpires. However, without realization, acceptance of the ongoing Nemesis input, you find an individual that is literally a mouse in a wheel, attracting negativity and bringing about their own downfall due to their denial. So yeah, in the natal chart, it calls for responsibility and acceptance of the shadow self. So yeah, it's like the shadow self. Note your weaknesses and embrace them. Accept that you're flawed and take note of how many times you have experienced a downfall due to your flaws. Take on and embrace your role in the negative events and move on from resentment. Wherever Nemesis is placed and whatever is the rulership is a key to personal resentment. When you look towards others, what do you envy? When difficult situations happen, not events or tragedies fully out of your control, but when life events happen, how do you dish out the blame? Okay, that makes sense. All right. Okay. Okay. Yeah, Jupiter conjunct part of fortune, like with Chiron, like those two together, just like, you expand so much when you're a leader and a healer combined. Okay, nothing on Mars. Nothing on Mercury. Okay, so you literally have Fama on your fucking sun in midheaven. That is asteroid related to fame. So that is spectacular. And also, I mentioned that your midheaven and your sun are in the ninth house. So that reflects how you want to gain your truth and philosophy through your career. All right, carrying on. And then child conjunct Saturn, so that could just speak to like issues around like accessing your inner child and setbacks there, which goes back to that Chiron and Aries need to like just have fun and be independent and just be in your passions for healing. And you have Zosma, which is like one of like the really ancient pick stars about like astrology and anything esoteric, anything that like, in this world, right? And you already had the really nice one for divination rising on your Venus. So that makes you a truth seeker, someone that wants to go beneath the surface and find things. Union conjunct Pluto, that just speaks like the karmic relation, patterns in your relationships, the karmic energy there. And the transformational aspect of them. And then you've got like Eris and Cupido conjunct Uranus. So that's like kind of a very flirty and very sensual kind of energy with Uranus, which is the planet of shocks. So I would just think like how, you know, it could also be very poetic and very artistic in that sense, but just how love life can just be a little bit like, whoa, where'd that come from, So just check one thing real quick. I won't find anything about this, but I could try. Oh. All right, so that is it. Thank you so much for your patience. So you have the follow-up already. So I would like to propose to you what most people do, nearly everyone actually. I'd say at least 90% of people, 95. So you get this reading, you already have the follow-up, right? I'm starting to mix together my last session, this one, but yeah. So basically, you have the follow-up already. That's an hour, just about the natal chart. What most people do is that, and that's not a long wait. It's just whenever you're ready, whenever you've taken this in, um, we can get together and either just do the follow-up, like the hour you already have, or I would give you the special price of 260 instead of like 380 or something. For the current astrology slash spiritual alignment, where I go over everything when it comes to current astrology for the next year plus for you to understand the astrological weather. And so hour one is the follow-up. 2 and 3, typically, sometimes it's more, a few times it's been less. I go over everything that there is the current astrology plus just me as a psychologist, as like it's called spiritual alignment. I'm a lot more than just an astrologer, so we talk about everything, and then I give you every piece of current astrology. While some astrologers, not to talk shit, like they'll charge an arm and a leg, and they'll break, like I'm doing progression, solar arc, solar return, transits, house ingress, everything, right? They'll like break those each up into its own reading. Yeah, I do a lot with that one, so it's really good. So let me know if you want to do that, or if you want to just take the follow up. Just let me know. No time, no pressure, no, nothing like that. So yeah, yeah. All right. Well, thank you. And 1 hour 34. Yeah, I've been keeping them so short lately. That's like my shortest one in a minute. My longest one in a minute, I mean. But thank you and ciao. Or buenas tardes. How do you say it? Or it's in Romanian, it's ciao. Yeah, buenas tardes. Buenas yeah, whatever. Fuck it. All right. Ciao.